After having my baby, I came back from the hospital, only to find that my house key didn't work anymore. You're home? I thought you weren't coming back, so I changed the locks. You can't live here anymore. We're strangers now. I've already filed for divorce. If you had apologized sooner, this wouldn't have happened. Serves you right, my husband Ryan said on the phone. Then he hung up. I stood there, holding my newborn, staring at the useless key in my hand. He had locked me out without telling me. Anger bubbled inside me as I thought about everything Ryan had put me through. He probably expects me to beg him to let me back in, saying, "I'm sorry, please take me back." Maybe I would have done that before, but not anymore. He doesn't deserve to be a husband, let alone a father. I've decided to make him pay for everything he's done to me. I wasted no time. I got to work right away. My name is Mia, and before all this, I was a housewife, 3 months pregnant. Ryan had asked me to quit my job when I got pregnant so I could focus on taking care of the house and preparing for the baby. At first, I was happy about the pregnancy, but also a little overwhelmed. I hadn't expected to get pregnant so quickly, just 3 months after we got married. I thought we'd have more time to enjoy being newlyweds. Growing up as an only child, I always wanted my future kids to have siblings. Ryan had even said before we got married, "It's better to have more than one child." He seemed so excited when we found out I was pregnant. Every day, he talked about how he couldn't wait to meet the baby. We even started picking names before we knew the gender. But things weren't perfect. Not long after we found out I was pregnant, I started having terrible morning sickness. It was so bad I could barely move. Lying down, sitting up, even small tasks were exhausting. The house got messy because I couldn't clean or cook properly. Ryan didn't say much at first, but I could tell he wasn't happy. His annoyance grew when I started going to bed early, too tired to wait up for him to come home from work. I wanted to smile at Ryan, to listen to him talk about his day, but I didn't have the energy. "Hey, can you clean the room already? There's so much dust everywhere. And we're always ordering food. I want home-cooked meals. Is this really how it's going to be when we're newlyweds?" He complained one day on his day off. I wanted to snap back, "Why don't you do it yourself?" But I bit my tongue and forced a smile. I've told you before, my morning sickness still hasn't gone away. It's really hard for me right now. I'd appreciate it if you could help out a little. You're going to be a dad soon, so I hope you can understand and pitch in. I was proud of myself for speaking calmly without losing my temper, but Ryan just brushed me off. No, pregnancy and childbirth are a mother's job. There's nothing I can do. You know that. You need to deal with morning sickness and take care of the house until the baby's born, or we'll never manage. I'll spoil the baby once it's here, so don't worry about me. It was around noon, and he left to go out for lunch. Lately he'd been going out to eat and returning home late, sometimes without bringing anything back for me. I don't hate Ryan. I married him because I loved him. But he doesn't take care of himself, and when things don't go his way, he sulks like a child. Before we married, he'd complain if I canceled dates because of work. To make him happy, I'd take him out to eat or comfort him. When he came to visit my house, he'd complain about the cleaning or the food. Back then, I laughed it off. But now that we were living together, his behavior was becoming unbearable. I kept my feelings to myself, hoping things would change once the baby came. One night, I woke up to a dark house. Ryan, who had gone out for lunch, still wasn't back. I felt relief that he wasn't there, but also emptiness. As I looked around the messy room, the word divorce crossed my mind. But when I thought about the baby growing inside me, I hesitated. Was it wrong to consider leaving? Days passed, and those thoughts kept weighing on me. Then, one day while I was eating, I felt something wet running down my legs. Could it be my water breaking? I panicked and rushed to check. Soon, I felt pain in my belly. I was a few days away from my due date, and I was terrified. I called Ryan, who was at work, but he scolded me for not sticking to the schedule and refused to leave work. He had promised to leave work when I went into labor, but this was the reality. I decided not to focus on Ryan's neglect. I needed to focus on giving birth safely. I called for an ambulance and was rushed to the hospital. Even when I arrived, I struggled with the pain of labor. Once the pain eased up, I called my mom and my mother-in-law, and they came to the hospital right away. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a message from Ryan. There was nothing. Eventually, I stopped worrying about him. After a long, painful labor, I finally gave birth to my beautiful child. I rested for a while on the delivery table before being moved to a private room. My parents and my mother-in-law praised me, saying, "You did great." And my mother-in-law held my hand tightly, tears in her eyes. Then, suddenly, she seemed to remember something and said, "Wait, Ryan hasn't come yet, has he?" Everyone in the room realized at the same time and began asking, "Where is he? What's going on?" I had almost forgotten about my husband. I pulled out my phone and called him. "Hey, where are you?" "The baby is here. Everything went well. I want you to come now. Everyone's waiting," I said. "Good job with the baby, but you're wrong," Ryan responded. "First, apologize to me. Say sorry for not keeping me updated, for the baby coming earlier than planned, and for messing up the schedule. It's your fault I couldn't be there. I feel bad for the baby since she came out early. Anyway, I still have work, so I can't come. Bye." He hung up. At that moment, I covered my face and started crying loudly. My confused parents and in-laws asked what was wrong, and I couldn't hold back anymore. I told them everything about how Ryan had been acting lately. Everyone was furious after hearing what had been happening. My in-laws apologized to me and my parents, but by then my feelings toward Ryan had completely changed. "I'm thinking about divorcing him. I know the baby's just been born, but I'm sorry, Mom, Dad," I said. "That's not something you need to apologize for, Mia. Yes, you should follow your heart." My mother-in-law, father-in-law, and my parents all agreed. Though I felt relieved, I also felt bad for my baby. My tears flowed again, and I cried all night after everyone left. After I calmed down, I struggled with breastfeeding and taking care of the baby in the same room. One day, my mother-in-law came to visit. After admiring her grandchild, she sat down next to me and began talking about my husband. "I've never told you this before, but when Ryan was a child, his parents both worked, and he was what they call a latchkey kid. They taught him to fold laundry and use the microwave so he could do things on his own. He was excited to be able to do things by himself. But when he was home alone, he couldn't handle the loneliness and cried every day, often causing trouble for his parents. They had no choice but to apologize and ask other people to look after him. Whoever finished work first would go pick him up. Sometimes he'd have dinner with whoever was taking care of him, and his parents would give them a little money. Whenever they told him to heat up his own food, he would cry and scream that he didn't want to, and wouldn't even touch it. So they had to leave him with someone else. Feeling guilty about leaving him with other people, his parents decided to send him to cram school. They thought it would be better if he was busy and not alone at home. But he cried even more at the thought of coming home alone after cram school. The place they went to pick him up from changed, from someone's house to a cram school. He still wouldn't make food for himself. He used the pocket money his parents gave him to buy snacks before and after cram school. When his parents picked him up, they would go home together, and they would make dinner for him. Rain had been living a selfish life, never doing any housework for his working parents. He always told us, "I hate being alone because I can't do anything by myself." So he chose a university and a job that were close enough for him to commute from home. That's why he couldn't do anything on his own. At home, I ended up taking care of him. I thought he would change after getting married and becoming a father, but he didn't change at all. "I'm really sorry for the trouble, Mia. I realize now that we raised him the wrong way," my mother-in-law said, her face full of regret. I strangely agreed that he wouldn't change just because he got married, considering how he'd always been. I realized I hadn't talked to my in-laws about how things were at home with Ryan, and without meaning to, I ended up telling my mother-in-law everything. That night, I was trying to rest before the next nursing session when I got a call from Ryan. "Did you say something to my parents? Is this your way of getting back at me for not visiting you?" "Don't be a tattletale, you brat," he said before hanging up. "Who's the brat here?" I muttered under my breath, but I calmed down as I looked at my sleeping baby and eventually fell asleep. Finally, it was time for me to be discharged, but Ryan never came to see our baby. I felt relieved. I took a taxi home, and the driver helped with my luggage. As I tried to unlock the door, I realized the key wouldn't fit. It felt like the lock had been changed. Only Ryan could have done that. Holding back my anger, I called him. "Oh, you're discharged today. Well, this isn't your home anymore. It's my house now. You and I are strangers. I've already filed for divorce. If you had apologized earlier, this wouldn't have happened. Don't ever contact me again. Serves you right," he said before hanging up. Knowing I couldn't stay outside long with my baby, I called my mom and explained the situation. After the call, the taxi driver, who had been watching everything, eagerly returned my luggage to the car and opened the door for me. When I arrived at my parents' house, I left my baby with my mom and went to consult a lawyer. The lawyer listened to my story and confirmed if I really wanted a divorce. Since Ryan had already filed for divorce without my consent, we needed to go through a divorce invalidation process. If we couldn't agree, we'd have to go to court. But I had already made up my mind. I wanted the divorce. I had no objections to the divorce itself. It wasn't just about the insults. It was about my husband not coming to see our baby and locking us out of the house. No one should treat others like that. Even I was getting so angry, I could hardly keep my cool. I told my lawyer I wanted to claim compensation for the mental distress I went through during my pregnancy, child support, and a fair division of property as punishment for his actions. I didn't think Ryan would agree to mediation. Even if we did go to mediation, I didn't think we'd reach an agreement. The lawyer explained that I couldn't file a lawsuit immediately without going through mediation first, which made me feel a little discouraged. But it wasn't just about me anymore. I had a baby to protect. Rather than begging my husband and pretending like everything was okay, it made more sense to fight for my future and my child. Besides, Ryan's fake divorce papers were a completely different issue. He deserved to suffer for what he had done. I will file a complaint against him, I told my lawyer. Not long after that, Ryan was arrested by the police. It turned out he had been cheating on me with another woman in a house that wasn't ours. I later found out from my in-laws that Ryan had changed the locks right after I was hospitalized, and he had been living in our house. But he couldn't handle the mess and the dirty dishes, so he moved in with his mistress. He was living there without a care until the police came and arrested him. When I told my in-laws that I had consulted a lawyer, they tried to reach Ryan and even went to our house. But they couldn't get through to him. He hadn't gone back to his parents' house either. They wondered where he could be, but never imagined he was cheating. It turned out the affair had been going on for a few months. There had been signs. He'd leave during the day and come home late at night, saying he was working overtime. At the time, I was suffering from morning sickness and dealing with my selfish husband. Honestly, I thought having some time alone might be better. Maybe I was pretending not to notice what was really going on. Ryan kept blaming me, saying things like, "I'm not at fault. It's Mia's fault for leaving me alone," to the police and lawyers. He acted like a child, crying and wailing, unable to take responsibility for what he had done. During the lawsuit, he realized that the more he insisted on being innocent, the worse it made things for him. Then, for the first time since we met, he apologized to me, saying, "I was wrong about everything. Let's start over. I want to see my baby." Since we never met face to face, I heard everything through my lawyer. When Ryan told me to clean up for once, I was already extremely irritated. But his apology and selfish demand became the most irritating moment of my life. I had my lawyer tell him exactly how I felt. Eventually, things came to a close. I got a fair share of the property and even received more compensation for emotional distress than I expected, especially considering Ryan's infidelity. Since the house was in Ryan's name, I gave it to him without hesitation. I didn't want to live in that messy, foul-smelling house anyway. As for child support, we agreed that he would pay monthly. But I later heard from my mother-in-law that he had quit his job and started working part-time after everyone at his company found out about the affair. He tried to move back in with his parents, but my father-in-law scolded him and told him he was never welcome there again. So Ryan sold the house we lived in and is now staying somewhere else. I don't expect much from the child support, considering his situation. However, my in-laws offered to help out for the sake of their grandchild. They said they would contribute separately from Ryan. I couldn't accept money from them, but I was deeply grateful for their kindness. Now I'm back at my parents' house. With their support, I'm taking some time to rest, both physically and mentally. One day, I plan to move out with my child and start working. I'll live a simple but happy life. I'll do my best.